Tenshira X Wednesday by Rimuchi. Wednesday Adams. The high school hallway buzzed with energy. Lockers slammed shut, groups of students leaned against walls, and snippets of conversations filled the air. The walls were lined with brightly colored posters advertising pep rallies, sports games, and spirit days. A stark contrast to the monochrome presence now stalking down the hall, Wednesday Adams. Dressed entirely in black, her braided hair hung neatly over her shoulders, framing her pale face. She wore a sharp-collared black dress and dark stockings, paired with her signature deadpan expression. Her eyes, cold and calculating, scanned the sea of students who parted for her like the Red Sea. Whispers trailed her as she moved. "That's the creepy girl. I heard she almost got expelled from every school she's attended. Why is she even here? Shouldn't she be in a haunted mansion or something?" Wednesday pretended not to notice. Or rather, she genuinely didn't care. Her disdain for humanity at large meant their opinions were less than irrelevant. Wednesday stopped in front of her locker, her sharp gaze narrowing slightly. Something felt off. She opened the metal door and froze. Inside, Pugsley Adams, her younger brother, was tied up with thick ropes. His round, cherubic face was streaked with frustration, and an apple was stuffed in his mouth, rendering him mute. His wide, pleading eyes looked up at her. Wednesday tilted her head, her dark eyes betraying a flicker of annoyance. "If I had $1 for every time I found you like this, I could afford a guillotine." She reached in, removed the apple from his mouth, and set it down on the shelf inside her locker. Pugsley gasped, his voice shaky. "Thanks, Wednesday." "Don't thank me. Explain," she demanded, her tone cold but inquisitive. "Who did this to you?" Pugsley hesitated, glancing away. "It doesn't matter. I'm fine." Wednesday crouched slightly, her intense gaze locking onto his. "You're pathetic enough without inviting the world to see it. Who did this?" Pugsley shook his head. "Just let it go, Wednesday." Her sharp, black polished nails worked at the knots of the rope, and as she untied him, a strange sensation washed over her. A jarring, cold pulse shot through her, and her vision clouded over. The vision. Wednesday's mind was no longer in the present. Instead, she saw Pugsley walking through the hallways earlier that day. He shuffled nervously, clutching his books tightly to his chest. Suddenly, a group of boys from the swimming blue team approached him. They towered over Pugsley, their broad shoulders and smug grins a clear indicator of their intent. "Hey, loser," one of them sneered. "Where's your creepy sister?" Another boy chuckled. "Bet she's off summoning demons or whatever freaks like her do." Pugsley tried to avoid their gaze, muttering, "Just leave me alone." But they weren't having it. One grabbed him by the arm while another pulled out a rope. Laughing, they tied him up, ignoring his protests. "Gotta make sure you don't go anywhere, little Adams." To add insult to injury, one of them pulled an apple from his gym bag and shoved it into Pugsley's mouth. They hoisted him up and dragged him down the hallway, laughing uproariously as they stuffed him into Wednesday's locker. "Let's see what your freak of a sister has to say about this." End of the vision. The vision faded, and Wednesday blinked back into reality, her grip on the rope tightening. She continued to untie Pugsley as though nothing had happened, her face unreadable. When he was finally free, she stepped back, folding her arms. It was the swimming team, wasn't it? Pugsley's face turned pale. "Wednesday, don't." Without another word, she grabbed the apple and shoved it back into his mouth. "I'll take care of them," she said simply, her voice calm yet laced with venom. She turned on her heel and strode off, leaving Pugsley sitting on the floor, helplessly muffled once more. Wednesday's dark figure cut through the hallways of the school like a shadow. Her sharp black boots clicked against the polished floor as she made her way toward the swimming club room. Students parted to let her pass, some whispering nervously, others simply staring, caught off guard by her intense aura. Her expression remained neutral, but her mind was focused, each step deliberate. In her hands, she carried 2 bags. To most, they looked innocuous, but the slight wriggling within told a much different story. She reached the door to the swimming club, where the muffled sound of laughter and splashing water drifted through. Without hesitation, she pushed the door open and stepped inside. Inside, the group of boys from the basketball team was in the pool, their loud voices echoing off the tiled walls. They were throwing a ball back and forth, laughing and yelling as they splashed around. The air was thick with the smell of chlorine and overconfidence. At first, they didn't notice Wednesday's entrance. She stood there silently, her pale face expressionless as she observed them. Then one of the boys spotted her, and the laughter ceased momentarily. Well, if it isn't the creepy Adams chick," one of them jeered. Another boy laughed, slapping the water. What are you doing here, freak? Shouldn't you be off casting spells or something? Let me guess, a third chimed in, you came to complain about your little loser brother, huh? He couldn't handle a little fun. Their taunts grew louder, and Wednesday remained unfazed, her dark eyes fixed on them with an unnerving calmness. You did something, she said, her voice sharp and quiet, yet it cut through the noise like a blade. Something that not even anyone have dared to do. The leader of the group tilted his head mockingly. Oh yeah, and what's that? Wednesday's lips curled into a faint, menacing smile. You upset me. The boys laughed, the sound echoing through the room. What are you gonna do, huh? One of them mocked. Stare us to death. Without another word, Wednesday raised her hands. In each hand, she held a clear plastic bag. The boys squinted, trying to make out what was inside. Their laughter faltered when they saw the contents, a school of wriggling, sharp-toothed piranhas. Before the boys could react, Wednesday strode to the edge of the pool and tore the bags open, dumping the piranhas into the water. The boys froze for a moment, staring at the fish as they dispersed through the pool, their sleek, shiny bodies cutting through the water like tiny torpedoes. Then the panic began. What the hell? One of the boys screamed, thrashing in the water. Are those piranhas? Another yelled, trying to swim toward the edge. Their movements grew frantic as the piranhas closed in. One boy let out a blood-curdling scream as a sharp bite sank into his leg. Another tried to pull himself out of the pool, only for a piranha to clamp onto his calf, leaving a trail of blood in the water. The once clear pool turned crimson as the boys scrambled to escape, their screams echoing through the room. Wednesday stood at the edge, watching the chaos unfold with a detached satisfaction. The leader of the group managed to pull himself onto the pool deck, clutching his bleeding leg and staring at Wednesday in horror. You're insane, he screamed, his voice trembling. Wednesday tilted her head, her smile faint but chilling. You hurt my brother. No one is allowed to do that but me. Another boy tried to climb out, but a piranha snapped at his hand, forcing him back into the water. Wednesday leaned slightly forward, her tone eerily calm. Consider this a lesson. The next time you think about bullying someone, remember this moment. And pray I'm not around to teach you again. As the boys finally managed to drag themselves out of the pool, bleeding and terrified, Wednesday turned and walked away. The sound of their groans and cries faded behind her as she stepped into the hallway. Students peeked in from the doorways, their faces pale with shock. Whispers filled the air once more, but this time, the tone had shifted. Did you see what she did? She's not just creepy, she's dangerous. I don't think anyone's going to mess with her or her brother ever again. Wednesday continued down the hall, her footsteps steady, her dark braid swinging with each step. For her, the matter was resolved. Justice had been served in the only way she deemed appropriate. Behind her, the swimming club room remained in chaos, a scene of blood, piranhas, and terror that no one would soon forget. The Addams family living room was steeped in its signature macabre charm. Shadows from the flickering candelabras cast dancing shapes on the stone walls, while the faint scent of aged parchment and burning incense hung in the air. The Gothic decor, from the cobwebbed chandelier to the claw-footed furniture, was a perfect reflection of the family who called it home. Morticia Addams sat upright on the plush black couch, her long, flowing gown pooling around her like a shadow. Her usually serene face was tense, her piercing eyes fixed on her daughter. Across the room, Wednesday stood with her arms crossed, her pale, expressionless face betraying no hint of remorse. Between them, the tension was palpable, an invisible thread pulled taut, ready to snap. Gomez Addams lingered near the grand fireplace, one arm draped casually over the mantel as he puffed on a cigar. His jovial demeanor served as a counterpoint to the storm brewing between his wife and daughter. Pugsley, meanwhile, perched awkwardly on the edge of a chair, his round face a mix of guilt and awe as he watched the confrontation unfold. Morticia's voice was like a crack of thunder in the room. Wednesday, do you realize the extent of what you've done? Releasing piranhas into the school pool, do you understand how severe this is? Wednesday's voice was calm and even, a stark contrast to her mother's frustration. I was merely protecting Pugsley. Isn't that what family is supposed to do? Morticia's expression darkened further. Defending your brother doesn't require such theatrical methods. That poor boy deserved it, Wednesday interjected. He tied Pugsley up and shoved him in my locker. I'm sure the bite marks will remind him not to overstep his boundaries next time. Pugsley stifled a nervous laugh but quickly straightened under his mother's withering gaze. Morticia pinched the bridge of her nose, inhaling deeply as though summoning every ounce of patience she possessed. This is the 8th school you've been expelled from, Wednesday. 8th. Do you have any idea how this reflects on our family? Wednesday tilted her head, her dark braids shifting slightly. Yes. It reflects our unwavering commitment to upholding our values. Frankly, I fail to see the issue. Gomez chuckled softly, stepping away from the fireplace and clapping his hands together. Now, Tish, let's not be too hasty. Wednesday was standing up for her brother. Isn't that exactly what we've taught her? Family above all else. Morticia shot him a sharp look, but Gomez remained undeterred. His face lit up with admiration as he added, I dare say, that kind of loyalty is inspiring. Gomez, Morticia began, her tone heavy with warning, we cannot keep allowing this. Every time she gets expelled, it becomes harder to find another school willing to take her. At this rate, we'll run out of options. Gomez shrugged. So what? We'll homeschool her. Imagine the stories she'll have to tell. Morticia sighed deeply, her hand drifting to the pearl necklace draped around her neck. She paced across the room, her long dress trailing behind her like a shadow. Finally, she turned to face her husband, her expression softening slightly. We can't keep running from this, Gomez. We need a solution, something permanent. Gomez's eyes gleamed with curiosity. And what, my darling, do you propose? A small, knowing smile curved Morticia's lips. Nevermore Academy. Gomez's face lit up with excitement. Our alma mater. Tish, you're brilliant. He strode across the room, taking her hand in his and pulling her close. That school shaped us into the delightful enigmas we are today. Morticia smiled, her anger momentarily forgotten as she leaned into him. It's the perfect place for Wednesday. She'll be among her kind, other outcasts. They shared a kiss, their affection for one another palpable and undeterred by the chaos of the situation. Wednesday, who had been silent during this exchange, let out a sigh that was both weary and theatrical. I am not going to that school. Morticia turned to her daughter, her sharp gaze narrowing. Oh, but you are. And you'll fit in perfectly. Wednesday's voice was as dry as the desert. With other freaks who howl at the moon and grow scales when they're angry. No, thank you. Wednesday Adams, Morticia said, her tone commanding, you will attend Nevermore Academy. You'll pack your bags tonight, and we leave tomorrow morning. Wednesday held her mother's gaze, the intensity between them thick as fog. For a moment, it seemed as though she might argue further, but instead, she turned on her heel and began to ascend the grand staircase. Just as she reached the top, Morticia called out, her voice cutting through the silence. And don't even think about running away, Wednesday. You won't get far. Wednesday paused for a moment, her back to the room, before continuing to her bedroom without another word. As the door to Wednesday's room clicked shut, Gomez turned to Morticia, a wide grin spreading across his face. She's got your fire, you know. Morticia allowed herself a small, proud smile. Let's hope Nevermore can handle it. The sound of the old cell phone ringing echoed through the hallway, breaking the eerie silence. Morticia walked over to the phone and picked it up with an air of grace. Hello, Morticia said smoothly, her voice as calm and composed as ever. The voice on the other end was familiar but distant, the tone warm but purposeful. Hello, darling. It's Maria Nightshade. A smile tugged at the corner of Morticia's lips at the sound of her old friend's voice. Maria, it's been too long. How have you been? Maria's voice, though distant, was filled with warmth. Oh, you know, the usual. Busy with Rimuru and everything. He's grown so much lately, and he's about to attend Nevermore Academy, you know. Morticia's interest peaked. Really? Well, isn't that something? Our Wednesday is about to attend as well. Is that so? Maria's voice lightened with intrigue. Then I suppose they'll be seeing each other there. Morticia nodded as she leaned back into her seat, running her fingers along the edge of the table. It seems so. I imagine they'll make good friends. That's wonderful, Maria replied, her tone fond but distracted. We'll have to catch up once they're both settled in. I'll be sure to pass on your message. It was lovely hearing from you, Maria, Morticia said with a smile before hanging up the phone. Gomez asked, his curiosity clear. Who was that, my darling? Morticia placed the phone down with a soft sigh. It was Maria Nightshade. She says Rimuru will be attending Nevermore Academy as well. It seems our little Wednesday will have a friend who shares similar characteristics. Gomez grinned, the idea obviously thrilling him. Perfect. It's always better when she has someone she can relate to, don't you think? Morticia's eyes softened, her gaze turning wistful. Yes, perhaps it will be for the best. Next day, Wednesday, still in her dark attire, stood next to the family car, her expression unreadable. Her father, Gomez beamed proudly, his eccentric smile a mirror of his usual enthusiasm. Pugsley stood by his side, silent but visibly excited. Morticia, ever composed, looked at Wednesday with a gentle smile as the family made their way toward the car. As they climbed into the vehicle, the butler, ever vigilant, began driving them toward Nevermore Academy. Wednesday stared out of the window, lost in thought. Her mind was a whirlwind of frustration and curiosity. She leaned back in her seat, glancing briefly at her mother, who was delicately sipping tea from a silver cup. What kind of nasty place is this Nevermore Academy, anyway? Wednesday asked, her voice cold and distant. Morticia, despite the clear irritation in her daughter's tone, responded with a calm sigh. Nevermore Academy is a place where both your father and I met. It's a place for those who are a little different. It is a place that has been our sanctuary. Sanctuary, Wednesday repeated, her skepticism heavy in the word. Sounds more like a prison. Gomez chuckled lightly, always the romantic. It was a sanctuary, my dear. And I assure you, it's the best place for you to be. You'll find your people there. Morticia nodded in agreement. As she placed a gentle hand on Gomez's, their shared, quiet affection for each other was evident. With a soft kiss on his cheek, Morticia continued, it's the best school for children like you, Wednesday. Wednesday sighed but said nothing more as the car rolled toward the academy gates. Her thoughts were a whirlwind of confusion, but there was no escaping the inevitable. She would go, whether she wanted to or not. The car slowed as they approached the imposing gates of Nevermore Academy. The gates creaked open, and the vehicle passed through, revealing the towering, Gothic architecture of the school. The stone buildings loomed large, their spires cutting into the overcast sky, and the entire campus looked more like a place of mystery than an academic institution. Wednesday took it all in with a cool, indifferent gaze. This place is as much a nightmare as I imagined. Her mother and father exchanged a knowing glance, both fond and slightly amused by their daughter's unyielding demeanor. They stepped out of the car first, Gomez stretching his arms wide to take in the air, while Morticia moved with her characteristic grace, gliding along as though they had arrived at a family reunion. A woman appeared at the entrance of the academy to greet them, Principal Larissa Weems. She was of average height, but her commanding presence made her seem larger than life. She was dressed in a formal black dress, with dark features that complemented the academy's somber aesthetic. Her sharp eyes immediately locked on Morticia's, and a smile tugged at the corner of her lips. Morticia, it's so good to see you again, Larissa said, her voice as warm and welcoming as the stone walls around them. It's been far too long, Larissa, Morticia replied with a smile. How have you been? Well enough, Larissa answered, though there was a hint of something more beneath her polite demeanor. Let's catch up inside. We can talk in my office. Lead the way, Gomez said with enthusiasm, and the family followed Larissa inside the grand building. As they entered the darkened halls of Nevermore Academy, the air seemed to hold its breath, as though the building itself was alive, awaiting the new arrivals. The walls were adorned with portraits of past students, their faces frozen in time, their eyes following the Adams family as they walked. After all these years, Morticia mused softly, her eyes sweeping across the halls, it feels as if time has barely touched this place. Gomez wrapped an arm around her, his voice warm and teasing. It's timeless, darling, just like us. Wednesday, trailing behind them, took in the sight with a deadpan expression. If this is supposed to be some kind of sanctuary, it looks more like a haunted house. Her parents ignored her comments, clearly at home in their surroundings, but Larissa smiled knowingly. This way, please, she said, gesturing toward the door at the end of the hall. They followed her into a cozy, yet formal office where they could continue their conversation. As the door closed behind them, the academic year was about to begin, and everything was about to change for Wednesday Adams.